Hello Zero Books readers, it's me again, Douglas Lane, and this video is the second in a series of videos about Slavoj Žižek's book, The Sublime Object of Ideology. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Žižek's claim that the commodity fetish can be mapped onto Freud's understanding and explanation of the psychological symptom. In order to make this clear, we will, of course, make a reference to pop culture. In this case, it will be the video game Cookie Clicker. And we'll also bring in Anselm Jappe, who's a Zero Books author who wrote the book, The Writing on the Wall. In the first section of Žižek's Sublime Object of Ideology, he informs us that, according to Lacan, it was none other than Karl Marx who invented the notion of symptom. What Lacan meant by this was that Marx's critique of the commodity fetish presaged Freud's understanding and explanation for abnormal behaviors or abnormal sensations in the body which are subjectively experienced as symptoms. In the field of medicine, a symptom is evidence of a disease that is subjectively experienced rather than directly observed. A nosebleed would be a sign of a disease, whereas the feeling of an itch in your nostrils would be a symptom. So right off, Žižek, along with Lacan, is taking a subjectivist or idealist position, as both interpret Marx's concept of the commodity fetish as symptomatic of capitalism, rather than as a sign or direct expression of capitalism. After making this claim that the fetish, known as a commodity, is a symptom of capitalism, Žižek proceeds to outline just how, according to Freud, symptoms arise in dreams. But before we examine the parallel between dreams and commodities, we should consider how it is that Žižek moves from the commodity as a direct expression of capitalism to the commodity as symptom. How did he make this move? Well, it's to be found not in his description of the parallel, but in his footnotes. On page 9, Žižek stops quoting Marx's Capital and switches over to quoting a different book, namely Intellectual and Manual Labor by the Frankfurt School philosopher Alfred Sohn-Rethel. This is significant for a couple of reasons. First, because Alfred Sohn-Rethel was born in the same year that Freud's interpretation of dreams was published. So his interpretation of Marx may have a lot in common with Freud's explanation of psychological symptoms, but Sohn-Rethel can't have invented the symptom except retroactively. So this is a problem, especially when you consider how it is that Sohn-Rethel, perhaps unintentionally, broke with Marx. In an essay entitled Why Read Sohn-Rethel Today, the Zero Books author Anselm Jappe noticed that Sohn-Rethel, while contributing to the development of a Marxist ontology based on history, nonetheless located the source of what both Sohn-Rethel and Jappe call the real abstraction at the wrong level of society. Now, a real abstraction correlates with what Immanuel Kant would call a category of understanding, or those intuitive notions that create the conditions through which understanding can be obtained. So for Kant, space and time are categories where Sohn-Rethel would add money as a universal equivalent of all commodities to the list of synthetic a priori concepts or categories. And while Jappe agrees with Sohn-Rethel's historicizing Kant's categories, he disagrees with how the Frankfurt School philosopher derives this real abstraction from the realm of circulation. According to Jappe, the abstraction in the act of exchange does no more than to fulfill the abstraction already created in production, in which labor is concrete as a material process, but not to its producers as social beings. It was the mode of capitalist production which turned circulation into a total form, and not the other way around. In yet another essay entitled The Money of the Mind and the God of Commodities, the Real Abstraction According to Sohn-Rethel, this time written by Nuno Miguel Cardoso Machado in 2013, Jappe's overall theoretical position is neatly summed up. Jappe holds with the new value critique approach to Marx. Cardoso Machado writes, Classical labor movement Marxism has always been trapped in a foreshortened critique of capitalism, grounded in an understanding of capitalism merely on the basis of private property of the means of production and on the corresponding subjective exploitation of the workers by the capitalists through the appropriation of the surplus value they produce. This stands fundamentally as a critique of distribution, in other words, of circulation, that opposes the anarchy of the market to the centralized planning and allocation of the labor time of society. The new value critics, on the other hand, would have would-be Marxist revolutionaries focus their efforts in a different direction. Rather than opposing the anarchy of the market, we should instead oppose the logic of labor. These critics believe that as long as our social relations are mediated by the production of value, as long as what matters most about the useful items we create is the average amount of time it took to produce them, we will neither escape from capitalist economics nor from the contradictory and often barbaric politics and culture that are derived from this fundamental category of value, or from this real abstraction. Again, from the essay, it is no longer the case of freeing labor, but of freeing ourselves from labor. Human emancipation will come about not from the elevation of labor to the supreme principle of humanity, but from its abolition, from the liberation of the production of material wealth, from the shackles of value, and of the abstraction, labor qua reified human sociability, from the madness of a real metaphysics. To put this into perspective, consider the game Cookie Clicker. This online video game from 2013 is very simple. Unlike most video games wherein you play as a character who can move and act, say, a side-scrolling game where you run across a landscape, jumping and ducking, fighting and fleeing, in order to achieve a goal like saving a princess. In Cookie Clicker, there's only one move you can make. You can click on and thereby create a cookie. However, these cookies you create by clicking become a currency. They become a form of money that you can use to buy items to help you in the game. That is, as you click on the cookie, you can purchase upgrades that allow you to click on the cookie, only more and more quickly. You can use the cookies you produce to buy more hands that will automatically click on the cookie for you. You can use the cookies to buy yourself a grandma who will click on the cookie. You can purchase cookie farms, cookie factories, rocket ships that explore outer space looking for cookies. And you can even buy a time machine so that you can go back into the past and retrieve more cookies. In the world of Cookie Clicker, the cookie is everything, and everything relies upon the cookie. If we were to try to get beyond cookies, if we wanted to free the people living under the cookie, it would be tempting, perhaps even inevitable, that we would aim at making sure that the grandma gets her fair share of cookies, or that grandma and the workers in the cookie factory get control over how and when to click on the cookie. We might try to seize control of the clicker. However, what the new value theorists would tell us to do is to stop clicking. After all, we have factories and rockets and nuclear reactors. We even have a time machine now. Why limit our use of these wonders by aiming only at cookies? Why not a lollipop or a nice piece of pie? At the end of the last video in this series, I noted that the point of Žižek's Sublime Object of Ideology was to overcome those who would argue for giving up on pursuing the ultimate meaning of our society in favor of perpetual resistance against or deferral to its meaning, and those who would find the meaning of society as something still to be won. So that is, we might imagine Derrida would be someone who would say, what is a cookie? Is there one cookie that we can fully understand and by which we can judge all the other cookies? Aren't these cookies merely one sort of understanding that we can have amongst many others? Might the word cookie also refer to a cracker or to a cake? After all, the history of the word cookie includes the concept of the plain bun, the little cake, the sweet cake, the notion of flatness. And are there not many cultures and times that have no buns or cakes or cookies? How can this cookie be the universal subject of our society when we don't even know what it is? Whereas, we might think of Habermas as a theorist who comes along and asks, how might we achieve the free and open exchange of recipes so that the ideals of baking can be achieved? Žižek wants to reject both of these approaches to the cookie clicker problem. to restate the problem abstractly, Žižek could neither accept that there was no real abstraction, nor allow himself to be completely defined by the real abstraction as it currently exists. So as we plunge ahead with the sublime object, I'm sure we'll have to return to this question of what defines capitalism, return again and again to this mistake of centering our critique of capitalism in the market or in the realm of circulation. However, Sohn-Rethel's understanding of Kant's categories as being historically derived can be salvaged from his work. And what we'll see as we move on is whether Žižek's notion of the sublime is likewise worthy of preserving. Thanks for watching this Zero Books video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to this channel and click on the notifications bell so that you'll be alerted whenever we release a new video. You should also consider supporting us on Patreon. Our patrons get access to our Inside Zero Books podcast every week and can get access to the Zero Books Book Club and help us to continue making online content from the left.